Jesse Wolfe, welcome to the American Glutton podcast.
What's up, brother? Thanks so much for having me. I am a massive fan of you and the podcast. So this is cool, man.
Dude, I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled to talk to you. I'm a fan of yours. You're hilarious.
Thanks, man. That means a lot for real, especially coming from you. I try. It's just who I am, I guess, right?
Yeah. And honestly, I also appreciate you put yourself out there and you're like, this is what I'm trying now. And
Yeah.
and I think that that's pretty much the most relatable, honest thing. I think the 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 issue I have sometimes with like anything diet related on social media is it becomes almost like a religious thing
Yeah.
sometimes, you know what I mean, where it's like
Yeah.
I'm doing X, and if you're not doing X, you're gonna fail, and here's why. And that is not the sense I get from you at all. You're very much like, hey, I've had my ups and downs. This is what I'm trying. Here's how it's going for me. Here's how I'm using it, which is really honest.
Thanks, brother. I'll tell you what, man, I'm a very big extrovert. You probably noticed that, and I'm very outgoing. And I really, over the years have developed this thick skin to not care what people think for the most part. But man, I've done some crazy things in my life and my career. And probably one of the harder things has been putting myself out there in this format. Basically at the start of, 2020, Rona and all that good stuff, I decided, hey, I was like you, I sympathize with you in so many ways, my journey of weight loss and weight gain and yo-yoing and all that. Um, I was big in like bodybuilding and stuff back in the day. And, you just always see the perfect body and the perfect results. And it's very rare that you see somebody on the struggle side. And when you do, it tends to be like rapid weight loss, et cetera, et cetera. Failure, you know what I mean? Like I've learned over the years to embrace failure. And,
Yeah.
I decided like I've embraced failure from an entrepreneurship side, but like from a personal weight loss side, it's always been a battle. And I'm like, man, I know I can't be the only one struggling with this. So that was one of the reasons why I even started posting it. It was first an accountability for me. And then secondly, it was like, hey, anybody else out there along the way that feels like me, like just know you're not alone.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how it started.
Don't you think that a lot of it gets wrapped up in look, I mean, I imagine I have no businesses and I'm the worst. My wife understands business much more than I do. But like from an external point of view, looking at business, I would imagine that nobody is going, all I need to do is build the business and then I don't have to do anything. Then I'm done. Then my job is over, right? Like I would imagine your business is going to fail if you treat it that way. You build the business and then you got to keep building the business, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
there's
That's
no
a
end.
great analogy.
Maybe the end is selling the business,
Yeah.
but like you're working the whole time to get there.
Yeah.
There's no point where you retire. I mean, maybe I guess, but like people retire and they receive some stipend from the business that they built. But like the whole time that you're doing business, you're working. And I think that there's some idea, and I don't know if you share this or if you ever did, but for me in the beginning, the idea was all I have to do is get lose weight and then I'm done. If I
Yeah.
if I just get if I just lose 100 pounds, I'm finished. I never have to think about it again. And
Right.
so I lose 100 pounds. I stop thinking about it. I gain the weight back, and I feel like a failure. And it took a long time for me to go like, wait a second. I'm going to have to put an effort towards this forever. And
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
if that's what I want, you know what I mean? Like,
Dude, that analogy of business is like it's a great idea, right? Like it's a great thought because you're right. It's like gains, right? In the gym. We work out, we pump weights, we lift to build this muscle mass. If we stop lifting, it
it goes
doesn't,
away.
yeah, it doesn't all go away, but you lose a lot of it, right? And that's the way to some degree a business is, right? I mean, it's very relatable. You don't just start it and get it going and then it just grows on its own. No, you got to work and you work. And the bigger it gets, the harder you have to work,
And
right?
more work. Yeah.
And we're working. So the more weight you lose, the bigger muscle mass you gain, the harder you work, to get to that point. And there is, even in business, to your point, there's no quote unquote finish line. Yeah, you might sell the company, but like a lot of us don't stop. Right
Right.
now, it's like,
Now
okay,
you got to do something else. What are you going to do next? Like, what,
yeah,
unless your whole game becomes retirement, which to me sounds so boring. Like, what,
yeah.
you're just done. You're just going to sit on a beach somewhere, which, okay, I could do that for a week or two. And then I want something to do.
Right. I mean, like the purpose of life is to find your purpose in life, right? I mean, like
Right.
that's kind of the thought process there. But yeah, I mean, there's, even in business, like to me, there's never a finish line. It's like, okay, I built that one. What next? Right.
Yeah.
And then this is how you get people, like Elon Musk, that went from his first like, tech startup to now, the guy's revolutionized. It was the Thomas Jefferson of our time, right? I
Right.
mean, if he stopped at, exit number one, we wouldn't have Tesla and solar and, all this other stuff, right? So, yeah, great analogy for sure.
Yeah. So so for me, watching you go through this, it's helpful to me on so many levels because I relate so much to the struggle. I also relate so much to like X didn't work. I'm pivoting. Now I'm going to do Y. Let's see how Y works. And here's how Y is beneficial to me. And all of this, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of like I'm down on myself, which fucking I think we all get down on ourselves, but like the idea that you can pick yourself up out of that is super, super. I mean, it's effective. It's infectious. Like I feel it from you. Do you know what I mean? Because
That's
my
awesome.
go-to is
I mean,
like I failed
yeah.
and now I'm going to be a failure for a while. That was my go-to. And watching you, you're like, no, I had some slip ups and now I'm doing this other thing.
What's the worst? And it's crazy because I watch a lot of these awesome like female influencers, plus size, that are on health journeys and stuff. And the women are so supportive of each other. And I love that. And I love that for them. And they're like, oh my God, I'm so proud of you, et cetera, et cetera. In my space, right? The women are equally as supportive, but and then there's the guys, right? And
The
half
guys
the
are
guys,
rough. The guys
yeah,
are
half
rough.
the guys are like super supportive and cool, and it's relatable to them, right? And then the other ones are like, oh, look at this fat guy still not losing weight, and it's like, you don't know me, and that stuff's, I try not to let it get to me,
Sure.
but at some point in time, I mean, I'm like you, I'm a big dude, I'm 6 foot, I'm over 400 and some pounds. I used to be a power lifter, what I mean? I'm still strong. Like, let's meet up, brother. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right, right.
Um, it's the keyboard heroes that really just crack me up because, I look at some of the other influencers and they're getting all this love and support. And I'm getting like kicked in the teeth left and right because it's like failure, failure. And you're right. Like you fall. What choice do I have? Right.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's either I go to 600 pounds or I go to 400 pounds. Like,
Right.
I just had to draw a line in the sand and be like, all right, you failed. It doesn't mean we give up, because
Right.
giving up is going to be even worse than where we're at today.
Yeah.
So, like, fuck that. We're not giving up. Like, let's go. Let's figure it out. Back to the books. What worked? What didn't work? And, I'm a hyper creative. I'm a very assessment type guy. So I kind of like blending like uh, engineering and a hyper creative together in a lot of my worlds. So I go back and I just inflect inwards and I go, okay, what worked? What didn't work? What did you like? Where did you fail? Why did you fail? And I've learned to do that over the years because, like I was a big little kid, and I had just some trials and tribulations for sure growing up that sucked terribly. Then I found sports and that changed my life forever, because for once I was like useful as the big guy. And then I was like, celebrated as the big guy. I was like one of the biggest guys on our football team, etc. And then in going in from high school into college, I lost a ton of weight like you did with cycling at that point in time. So I've ebbed and flowed over the years, and just then getting into business and entrepreneurship and traveling all over the country and stuff. I just really kind of got to my ultimate. I really sacrificed myself, before 2020 to do a big push for a company I was building at that time. And man, when 2020 hit and the world shut down, man, even my life kind of came to a halt, and I just had some time to go, holy hell, dude, you're really sacrificed yourself here. So now my daily motto is this: I always put myself last. It's a terrible quality I have. Everyone else's happiness has always, historically been above mine. I hate to make people upset or sad, whatever. So 2020, I'm like, it's meeting one, man. I would cancel anything in my life for that span that I was building one of my first companies to not miss a meeting or whatever. And I'm sure you can relate with, acting and stuff. I would do anything. I would drop everything. And I'm like, why don't I treat myself like this?
Yeah.
So I started doing something I call meeting one, M1. It's my most important meeting of the day. It's with me. It's the first thing that happens. And, the goal's always been hell or high water. I'm not canceling it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So,
Dude, that's amazing. And I never personally even thought about that, but like and there's so many like rationalizations that I make, but like for acting, I think there was one day that I was going to be late to My Name is Earl, and I called them and said, I'm going to be late. I'm so sorry. And then I was on time.
yeah,
But that
right.
was like the one, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, that's what it is for me. There's 200 plus people that can't do their job if I'm not there.
Yeah.
Um, I've missed kids' birthdays. I've missed holidays. Acting is like this weird thing where everything shuts off. I don't think about anything else. You try to give me something to do. Sorry, I can't.
Yeah.
There's no time. I don't even like my family to come and visit me at work because I don't want to be preoccupied with thinking about them when I'm trying to concentrate on this job. It just becomes hard. Not to say they've never come and visit. They have,
I get it.
but
Yeah.
it is very much like when you come to see me at work, I'm not your dad. I'm a
Yeah.
guy working. You can hang out in my trailer. If you come onto set, I'm not being your dad here.
Yeah.
So you're on your own. And if
Yeah.
you get yelled at by someone, I'm not going to defend you,
Yeah.
like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But like the
Totally.
idea of I imagine most people have some version of that, whether it's work or their relationship with their kids or whatever it is, where that becomes dominant, and trying to give yourself a little bit of that is really smart.
I mean, I'm sure you hear it your whole life, right? I mean, we hear it from our parents, our grandparents, friends, brother, whatever. Oh my God, I wish I could eat better. I just don't have the time to go to the gym, or I wish I could work out. I don't have time to go to the gym. And it's like, if you really sit and audit your day, we blow a lot of time in the smallest amounts, but they add up big time by the end of the day. So that's all I do now is, if I got to go to bed an hour earlier to get up an hour earlier the following day to allow me that opportunity to work out, then I'm going to do that. My rule, as much as I try, has always been to not schedule a meeting before 9:30 in the morning. That's my goal. Because it bulletproofs me, right? And that doesn't always happen, just due to time zones and changing and stuff like that with travel and stuff. But I always now just try to prioritize myself as it could be the largest retailer on earth because I'm in the food business. We manufacture food companies and products. So it could be the largest retailers on the face of this earth. But the most important meeting that day might sound like that one, but it's me now. It's my
Yeah.
time. It's my turn. And we all have the time. Like very rarely do you not, right? And if you don't, and I'm sure you can completely sympathize with this too. I mean, traveling's a bitch.
It's the worst.
It's the worst.
It's so hard. You get out at the relying on America to feed you in a strange place is so difficult. And I will often take food with me on an airplane, but then like sometimes I'm not thinking like, well, America now we have a lot of delays. I've been stuck multiple times recently. Like officially Dallas is an airport I will no longer ever fly into again
That's
if
a
I can
tough one,
avoid it.
yeah.
Dallas for me, I've had multiple times where I arrive in Dallas to a canceled flight. There's a hotel in the airport. They're always full because there's always canceled flights. I start looking for hotels nearby. There aren't any. I wind up having to get in a car for a half an hour in some hotel that it's just a nightmare. And then you're like, well, I had food for today. I don't have food for today and tomorrow. And now I'm scrambling. And Yeah, travel for me is the hardest. It's the absolute hardest to maintain the structure that I'm accustomed to, where it's just somebody constantly throwing curveballs.
Oh yeah, and then on top of that, like you said, you're bringing food with you, right? Well, it's already a pain in the ass to walk around an airport with your carry-on or your luggage, and now you got food with you, and you got to worry about the food, right? Because I mean, God forbid, you get stranded somewhere. I mean, I'm sure you've been. I mean, I've been stuck on an airplane at the tarmac for 4 hours.
Yeah.
You're just sitting there, So yeah, that stuff's been the worst. And then on top of that, and I'm sure you can relate to this because I've listened to a ton of your stuff over the years, and you've talked about being on set, and you get these glorious spreads of food.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you and I can relate. I mean, a buffet at one point in time in my life was like it, baby,
Right. It was a challenge.
Yeah.
It was like, who do you think's gonna win? I'm gonna win. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I'm
Yeah.
gonna get more than $89 out of you.
That's
Or
right.
whatever a
Yeah.
buffet costs. I don't know.
That's it, dude. And it's like I go to these work dinners sometimes and they're laid out, and I'm like, man, and I'll never forget one work dinner. We went to this place in New York City. It was unbelievably cool. In the basement, this little Italian place, and we were like, the dinner of the evening. Dude, they brought out every appetizer on the menu. I mean, they were doing extra food they've never made before. And I'm just like, and I remember that time I was doing keto, and I was like, yeah, well, this isn't happening tonight. It's gone,
Right.
And that happened. That was like a 2 week long, like kind of trip I was on. I mean, it happened like 12 more times. And I'm like, wow, this is impossible. And then if you don't eat, in some situations, I'm sure you can relate. If you don't eat the food they bring out, well, then you're being rude. Or
Right.
then they get into, well, oh, you're fat. I know why you're dieting. Or, oh, do you have diabetes? It's like, no, dude, I'm just trying to stick to a meal plan here. Like you get grilled for it. But if someone's jacked, like one of my former colleagues was a big fitness guy, nobody ever questioned him.
No, they look at him and they go, of course he doesn't eat this.
Right. And
Yeah.
I'm like, if I try to eat like that, you're like, oh, hey, I know you want this. I know you try. This sucks, right? And it's like,
all
okay.
we have to do is tempt you. We know there's a level. We get the temptation and you're gonna break.
And they push, right?
Of course.
They
want to
love
win. It's all, I feel like with dudes in those situations, it's all I was in LA recently, and a buddy of mine has a restaurant, and it's also like a social place. Like there's a bar in the back and people hang out. I don't drink, and I'm on a diet all the time anyway.
Good
right?
luck.
Yeah. And so I go and I'm like, I'm not going to eat. I'm not going to eat. And then 4 hours goes by and I'm hanging out with my friends, and I'm fine. And they're all eating dinner. I'm finally like, well, I can find something on his menu, and I'll tell him, the guy's my friend. He can make me some food. So I say, I want this and this and that. And he goes, but I got these specials. I really want you to try. And I said, no, I'm on a diet. So he makes me my food. I eat my food. And then we sit there another hour. And then suddenly the table is filled with food that nobody ordered. And he's like, come on, just have a bite of everything. And my friends are able to do that, where they have a bite. And then I'm looking at this food that my good friend just prepared basically for me. And I'm like, I'm not going to leave food on the plate. I don't leave food on the plate. I'm eating all of it. It's all getting eaten,
Yeah, it's going down.
Yeah.
And how guilty, so then you start that mental warfare, right? It's like, dude, I feel like I'm being an asshole right now because I'm disrespecting my friend who loves me and made me this spread. And it's art to him, so I want to compliment him. But then the other side of you're like, oh, there you go again, bro.
Right.
Off the rails,
You can't, you're in a situation where no matter what you do, you can't win.
Yeah. Yeah. And to make matters worse, I come from the Midwest. I, hail from Ohio. So, very Midwest, very from scratch, a lot of vegetables, farm type stuff growing up. Grandma, dude, coming over, what do you want? It was every time I stepped in that house, it could be 1 a.m. or 2 p.m. She's like, what do you want to eat? And I'm like, I just say, I'm going to make you something. What do you want?
Right. Right.
And that's always carried through. It's like if someone does make me food, or, especially in the past, they're massive portions, right? It's never just, just try a little bit,
right.
Oh, you got to eat the whole thing.
Right. I'm going to make you a bite and you'll get a sense of what this is.
Yeah, exactly. Try being in the food business. That's a real party.
I can't imagine. Yeah, no, I even have this guilt with my kids where it's like, I've dieted most of their lives. They're like, they never know exactly how, and now they know like roughly what I'm doing, but
Yeah.
like they like to bake. I have all girls. They're into like making food and doing this and that. And I don't think they really get home ec in school like I did when I was a kid, but so they do that at home. They're learning that kind of stuff at home. And the amount that I say no to them and just see disappointment on their face, like, Dad, I made this thing, you got to try it. And I'm like, no, I can't try it. And they're just like, you can see like I've said something harmful to them, like that no is painful. They're feeling such rejection that
Yeah.
now I'm like, you make me one bite, I'll eat a bite of your food.
Yeah. It's and you've talked about this before in the past, and it resonates hard with me. That's like going to an addict and being like, listen, fresh cocaine, it's
Yeah.
the best. Just a little bit. Just tell me if it's good, right? And meanwhile, you've been trying to be clean of that for years, or an alcoholic, like just a sip. Try this craft brew I made, right? Food we have to have. I
Yeah.
mean, you have to have food, but man, it's such a line because it's the only drug in essence that you have to consume. And those are the hardest times because I'm a food guy. I love food for so much more than just the taste. It brings family together. It's conversation. Like I've had some of the greatest times. You said it at one point too. I enjoy restaurants. I
Yeah.
enjoy going out with my friends. I enjoy traveling across the world, seeing new restaurants and new types of foods and cuisines. It's culture, right? I mean, there's so much you can learn from food and the history of food. So for me, that's my hardest challenge is like, well, that's something I actually love doing for more than just, being a glutton, right? I mean, I love food for everything it represents. So, it's the Food Network, all of it, right? Celebrity
Yeah.
chefs, et cetera, et cetera.
No, that there's no, I've been, there's really nowhere on earth that I can think of that I'd like to go that I haven't been. I've been on every continent except Antarctica and been and had every crazy meal. There was one point where I was like, I just got it in my head, like I need to eat Peking duck in the style of Peking duck in what was formerly Peking. I need to go there and eat that. So I did. I went
Yeah.
to Beijing and found, Luquan roast duck. You go in an alley, it's magical, it's incredible. So like there's nowhere on earth that I can think of where the first thought isn't what do they eat? It's the first thought. What food is there? That's how I can understand that culture. That's how I can relate to them. It's through my taste buds. It's really weird.
You're not alone though. Like I feel like a lot of us are that way. You know what I mean? And what sucks is I get ridiculed for it just because I'm fat, you know what I mean? Or a big dude, or whatever you want to call it. And meanwhile, look at history. I mean, the world in essence kind of revolves around food and culture and, et cetera, et cetera. So like to me, it's kind of natural that we like that. And you're traveling with your taste buds. I'm the same way. I land someplace and I'm like,
What do
what's
they
up?
eat here? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's fun. It's like treasure hunting almost, right?
Bro, you said you were from Ohio, and the first thing that popped into my head was Cincinnati chili. That's the first thought I had. They put chocolate in chili over spaghetti, and I like it. And you say Ohio, and that's what I think of.
But that's what I'm talking about right there. Like those are those memories that like sometimes we don't realize we make. Like I think of Austin and I think of Terry Black's.
Right.
Ohio, it's got Skyline chili, which is funky and delicious,
Yeah.
And it's fun because like I've almost hit every 50 states at this point in time. You end up in like, Des Moines, Iowa. You don't really vacation to Des Moines, Iowa, but there's a restaurant there that I'm obsessed with that if someone's from Des Moines, I'm like, Fongs? They're like, dude, I know Fongs. I'm like, yeah, what's up,
Right.
man? You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. It's so crazy. So you go through, you get to the pandemic, you start to make yourself, which I wanted to say this as you talk about the first meeting of the day is with yourself. It's such a it's such an incredible gift you're giving to yourself, and it's so valuable. Like me as a sober person, this was how I dealt with sobriety, because if I didn't have that meeting, and like you could say meeting and somebody could think it's this formal thing where you sit down and you talk to yourself. For me, the meeting might have been like that at one point, but 20 years in, it's really just a check-in. It happens quick, but it is the first thing of the day of like, I'm going to have a good day, right? It's really just me going, what is going to, despite the obstacles that are thrown at me, I'm going to navigate them. And I just start the day off with that mindset. And that's how I've maintained sobriety. And I didn't really start addressing food like that for a long time for this reason. I always thought of the diet as the solution. I always thought of weight loss as the solution. And that unlike my issues with substances, which I am just, I just abstain from those substances. And so that is very much the solution for me. There's more to it than that, obviously. But food has this added complexity of I have to eat still, right? And so when I started to go like, oh, I need to check in every day, I need to make a decision about today every single day, I realized this is forever. This is not, this has, the diet is a tool. Anything I do towards this is a tool. And the whole thing is just a rest of my life type pursuit.
That was so I come from a line of Hardy boys, right? We're all corn-fed Ohio boys. I'm the oldest of six. And I have it's all boys and a younger sister. She's the youngest, who's 16 right now. We're all kind of genetically, thicker guys. You know what I mean? And what's crazy is, again, in high school, junior high and high school, it was hell yeah, this dude's big. I was 6', 315 in high school. Like I was a great, a defensive tackle and offensive lineman, and I was celebrated for that. And then in wrestling, I'd have to crash diet down to 275 to hit heavyweight, and I was a damn good wrestler. Going into adulthood, it was so much of that fight, right? Like to figure out where I needed to land, right? Like, do I want to be thinner? Do I want to be heavier? And I fought so hard to stay thinner, so coming out of high school into college, I actually dropped my lowest weight ever, which was like 235. So from 315 down to 235. And I was like, this is awesome. Like I still mentally, I was like, I'm a fat guy. I'm a big dude still. And I had these like body dysmorphia still. And then I turned that kind of like you did, right? I was like, I felt weak. So I started getting into bodybuilding to powerlifting. And I fell in love, right? I got into like world strongman type stuff. And I just became an absolute monster, right? I'd always been strong, but I went after this like world strongman kind of run early on in my late teens and 20s. And from there, it's just been like this battle,
Yeah.
mentally of like wanting to be like this big guy and then, still trying to be like, I don't know, like healthy at the same time. So it's just always spinning, right?
Yeah, I wonder if, I know I am familiar. I talk to a lot of guys today. I don't talk to a lot of wrestlers, but a lot of people who fight MMA, and there is a weight cut for that almost always. But I wonder, because that kind of crash diet, that kind of starving yourself or way under nutrition, and then coming out of that and overfeeding after a point of starvation, that is really like the yo-yo diet cycle. And that can, I would just love to hear some data on how many kids who were involved in wrestling are struggling with weight later in life. Because like in Lane Norton's book, he talks about this study in mice. It's very hard to do it in people. I don't think they've ever done it in people, but like they know that we have a fixed number of fat cells. And when we gain weight, the fat cells get larger. But
Yeah.
they can show in mice that if they starve the mice and then overfeed them afterwards, they can produce, that is like this magical window where they produce more fat cells because
Right.
their bodies want to be able to store those calories more efficiently.
Yeah.
And so if we're doing that to ourselves in this kind of yo-yo battle cycle and if you start for sports as a kid,
Oh yeah.
I think you probably make dieting much, much, much more difficult in the long term.
That's fascinating. I've heard something around that, but I didn't realize it was to that extent. And I mean, I was crash dieting in seventh grade, right? I
Right.
mean, because, and football and wrestling overlap, right? So the end of football season overlaps the beginning of wrestling season. And we were traditionally fairly good. So, as a high school, so we would end up sometimes in the playoffs, which would then overlap for sure into that first couple of weeks of wrestling season. So while other guys who just wrestled were already in there conditioning, getting to their weight class, I had to be at 275. So I remember, especially my sophomore year, going from, well, actually, it was my freshman year, I guess, going from like 315 in football, literally crash dieting in like 4 weeks to
Right.
275. And I barely made weigh in for the first
That's
match.
like 10 pounds a week
Dude,
as a
it was
teenager. That's insane.
over Thanksgiving.
Right.
So here I am. I mean, I sacrificed Thanksgiving from seventh grade all the way through, my senior year of high school because it was in that sweet spot of trying to cut weight. And I mean, you do some really unhealthy shit to get there. I mean, you hear about the guys in the trash bags. That was me, man.
Yeah.
I'm in the middle of the showers. The showers are full sauna, steam. You're jumping rope with trash bags for hours just trying to sweat it out to barely make weight. And,
Yeah.
and you carry that, right? And then on top of that, during football season, you're lifting like crazy, you're eating like crazy. And then I carried that into powerlifting and, early in my late teens and 20s. So when I stopped at like 25, I mean, here I had this like unhealthy relationship with yo-yo dieting, crash dieting, and this massive appetite. I was eating 5, 6, 7,000 calories a day to try to keep muscle mass going.
Yeah.
When you turn it off, I mean, my God,
Yeah. I think I think that a lot of this stuff, especially the way kind of diet culture in America works, where
So
a lot of it is presented as this is the solution, right? This is all you have to do is X, right? This one simple fix, and it goes from don't eat meat to
yeah.
don't eat vegetables to don't eat sugar to don't eat carbohydrates to like every don't eat. There's like, don't eat fat, don't eat this. I even had somebody recently who tried to say like protein is killing everyone.
Oh
Nobody
my
should eat
God.
protein. And it's like, listen, everybody's got an opinion on this. Um, Eating more protein has been the only thing that has kept me feeling good and having success with weight loss.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you have a bad kidney condition, maybe protein's hard on those people, but like I get my kidneys checked, my kidneys are great, and I eat a ton of protein. Like I eat 250 grams of protein every day and have never had a problem.
Yeah.
So
That's
like,
huge, by the way.
yeah,
It's hard to do.
it's not easy, right?
No.
And so like and then there was a minute where it was like you're not eating enough fiber. So now I'm trying to aim for 40 grams of fiber, 250 grams of protein, and it's just like,
You feel like a
okay,
lab rat,
yeah,
sometimes.
but I get there, and when I'm hitting that, I feel fantastic. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And again, that's not the solution. That's just the way I'm figuring out my life and trying to go like, what structure can I build that I can live with forever? You know what I mean?
Every day, right? And like this is what's so funny because like circling back to what you said earlier, yeah, sure, there are some people that can just eat whatever they want, and they don't gain weight per se. But like I've got a friend that's like relatively thin and he has high cholesterol. He's 35.
Right.
And he literally right now he's pissed. He's like, how is this possible? I'm not fat. And I'm like, well, buddy, you don't eat any vegetables. You eat chicken tenders every day.
Right.
So we were joking about it. And then furthermore, I watch people like my brothers, right? So again, I'm the oldest of my siblings. Three of my brothers in the middle there, Dakota, Mason, and Blake, they were all in high school, 250, 260. And Cody's like 175 jacked. My brother Mason's like 189 and jacked. And Blake is like 225. He's like 6'2" and stout. They don't get to eat whatever they want.
Right.
I mean, every day, like you just said, every day they have to watch what they eat. They work their asses off in workouts. And I take that one step further to some of these professional athletes and these bodybuilders. Like we see them on TV or whatever, they're monsters, right? On the field, whatever sport they're playing. And we're like, oh, it must be so nice to be that physically like fit.
Yeah.
Half of them have to follow very, regimented diets, and they're taking crazy supplements and they're working out like absolute fiends.
Dude, you ever looked at what Tom Brady eats? I look at what Tom Brady eats and I'm like, holy shit, I couldn't live like that. It's so structured,
but the 90% of the world, and I have, I mean, and that's where I really have to remind myself, because you said something earlier, and at one point in time, I found myself several times doing the pity party. God, damn it, dude! Like, this is gonna be the rest of my life. I
Right.
got to do this every day. Like, why me? What did I do? Who did I piss off to get this unfortunate genetic? But then you got someone like Tom Brady who doesn't eat tomatoes, for inflammation purposes, and
Yeah.
it's one of those things where you have to remind yourself, like, someone might be jacked, or fit or whatever, but pop the hood.
Yeah.
What are they going through every single day? I guarantee you, most of them are working their asses off.
Yeah. It's our perception of, I think, the perceived effort. You know what I mean? Like you see somebody who's achieved some goal that you posit as a goal you would like to have, right? And you go like,
Yeah.
I want that. And it's like, okay, it's a lot of work. It's a
Yeah.
lot of work. And that guy who's got it is willing to do that work. And
Well,
like there
well,
are
they'll,
genetic factors too.
yeah.
It is easier for some people. Some people don't have to think about it quite as much as I do. Okay, that's not my lot in life.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Same, brother. Same. You know, I remember, like, when I was big into bodybuilding, and that's the Jay Cutler, Ronnie Coleman, the super era of bodybuilding. And I remember watching these guys, eating 6, 7, 8,000 calories in there. They're like, I'm like, wow, I'm over here like restricting everything,
Right.
and they're eating 8,000 calories. But then if you sit back and you look at it, it's like they've worked for a decade, 2 decades to put on that muscle mass to have to then burn that caloric intake, right? So, yeah, some people are just genetically gifted, and what's it like,
Yeah.
There's a lot of us I don't think that are.
Yeah, I also I like bodybuilding because I like the way they diet. Their diet to me seems pretty doable. It's the diet
Yeah.
that works the best for me. High protein, moderate carbs, moderate to lowish fats, right? That for me is easy.
Yeah.
It's not something I think everybody should do. I also like lifting weights. Lifting weights is fun.
Yeah.
Some of those guys, you look at Jay Cutler at his biggest, and I go like, that's not for me. I don't want to look like that. That guy looks
I think it
crazy.
looks better now. Have you
Right.
seen
I
recently?
agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he
um,
still works hard to look as good as he looks now.
yeah. I mean, my biggest thing is, when you sit there and you look at athletes like that, again, like you're talking about the diet right there. That's been my hardest thing. And, like, honestly, in 2020, when I really kind of like put myself first and was like, dude, I got to make some changes because I want to be here for a long time. Like, thank God I don't really have any health issues yet. But the keyword's yet, right? My doctors are like, dude, you can't be. I mean, like you, my heaviest was 498,
Right.
And it was a slippery slope because, and no, I haven't really shared this with anybody, to be honest with you. I, coming out of like my mid to late 20s, I had my dad actually had a heart attack at fairly young age, but it was kind of a freak accident type of situation, but it spooked me. And then I had my first panic attack, which then kind of got in my head about, do I have a heart issue? Long story short, they put me on some uh anxiety medication, in my late 20s, zombied me. I mean, you can kind of tell I'm a big personality, just zombied me, and I got really lethargic. And I mean, dude, I went from like 315 to 415 in no time, you
Right.
know. And then, that's been kind of the tipping point going into my early 30s was fighting, realizing I personally, if people need them, fantastic, definitely. I think there's a great place for those medications, but I didn't really need them. So I came off of them. And since, just, man, that mental thing of being over 400 pounds and, traveling and stuff, I mean, eventually coached me up to almost 500. And that's scary. I mean,
Yeah.
that's freaking scary, dude, to go, holy shit, how did you get to 500 pounds?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I also think that for me, when I got to that weight, the perception was it's going to be so much work to take it off, when really the amount of work I was putting into maintaining it, but it was like mindless work. The
Yeah.
other work, the work to take it off is cognizant work, right? It's analytical work. It requires effort just to think about the work. And
Yeah.
then you got to do the work too. But actually, the actual doing of the work in the long term is less work than maintaining 500 pounds. Like maintaining 500 pounds, the deadlift every day just to stand up, is a lot more than taking the weight off slowly and keeping it off. You know what I mean?
Brother, can I tell you a story? So the turning point for me, right? Like the when I started this 2020 mission, I just exited one of my companies. And ironically, it was weeks before the world shut down. So I was kind of like 2 weeks out trying to figure out what I was going to do. And I live in a really cool area in Orlando, and there's this huge lake. And I was like, oh, dude, I've never walked. I'm going to stop and smell the roses. I'm going to walk around this lake. So I strap on my shoes, and dude, I kid you not, I might have walked a quarter mile, and I had to sit down on a bench.
Yeah.
And either when I tell you that was like one of the lowest points of my life, I was like, how do you go from being this power lifter, setting, records and stuff, and like being this athlete, loving sports? I mean, my whole life growing up playing sports outdoors, the whole 9 yards. So you can't walk a quarter of a mile, like devastating. And that's where I was like, again, it gets to that point. I got two options, man. I can quit and like hope something changes, which it's not going to.
Right.
Or I got to do something about this, and that's actually when I started really posting myself on TikTok and stuff, kind of this journey. Cause I'm like, this is accountability. Like I can't not walk. Like that's
Yeah.
insane to me,
Yeah.
so that was scary, dude. That was really scary. Have you ever had that point?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I did. I had the point for me was I was more than fine with having to sit down. Like that didn't make any change in me. I also never did sports as a kid. So I had no sense of athleticism in my past. My athleticism came the first time I ever thought like, oh, I'm actually capable of being athletic was like, the first time I rode a bicycle 100 miles and realized, no, not everybody can just do this.
No.
Most people probably could work up to it, which I did. But
Yeah.
like at this point, like you say, how many people can just get on a bicycle today, ride it 100 miles and not be destroyed? And it took me a year of working at it every day to getting there and doing terrible diets and all of it. Right. And like, I wish I had known a bit more about nutrition at the time, but my change was really more about like this idea of having a future with my wife. But even then it was a decade or more of trying something, failing, trying something else, failing, going back to something before, just up and down. And it was a battle. And it was a battle really until 5 or 6 years ago when I really decided to think about it differently and go like, oh, there's no single shot solution to this. This is going to take a lot of different stuff for the rest of my life. The single solution is that I'm going to have to put effort into this forever.
Yeah. One of the biggest things I think about for my future is, especially like, being an entrepreneur myself, some of the most successful people you see, right, are they prioritize not only their business side of things, but they really prioritize their health, and they're in great shape.
Yeah.
They keep themselves into their 50s and 60s and 70s in incredible shape. And to me, now I think of it as if you're disciplined enough to take care of yourself, just like you said with riding the bike, then you could be disciplined enough to do anything else you want in life. And it's like, if I don't have that foundational discipline, it's really a mess in every other aspect of my life. So like, that's what I keep telling myself now is, this sucks. I'm like, you mentally, I'm like, dude, you got a bad hand of cards here dealt you, like this genetics, yeah, sure, you're tall and whatever, but like, man, I hate being fat. But in the same sense, it's like, okay, but I have the power if I want to figure this out. Is it going to be easy? Probably not. And like I've tried every diet under the sun. I mean, even way back as a junior high kid, I was, doing Atkins when that was all the rage. Right.
Sure.
And my poor parents, were awesome, and they worried about me from a little kid. So they had me on diets and meal plans trying to get me thin throughout the years. But, and coming out of the food industry, seeing, again, you want to talk about toxic diet culture and all that bullshit. That's another whole topic we can dive into. But at the end of the day, what I've realized probably in the last like 6-7 months is I've actually started to show like some insulin resistance, right?
Right.
My doctor was like, holy shit, you probably had this for a couple of years, because for me, I've been getting frustrated the last, call it 15, 18 months, because I'll lose weight. And the only time I'm losing weight is at like 1,700 calories.
Right.
It's like brutal.
Yeah.
I mean, that is brutal, right? And then, you're listening to people on YouTube and, doctors, whatever. Oh, you need 5 meals a day. I'm like, bro, how am I going to eat 5 meals a day at 1,700 calories?
Right.
And
250 calorie meals. It's like
yeah,
3 almonds, a Ritz cracker, and a small can of tuna. You
get
know?
the hell out of here. And then there's people that are like, just use the TDEE calculator and go into 1,000 calorie deficit. Okay, well, at 500 pounds, it's like 4,600 calories I need daily. I should be able to theoretically eat 3,200 calories and be way into a deficit.
Yeah.
Needle doesn't move for me, on the scale. I dropped to 2,500, doesn't move for me. And I'm working out, so I'm really thinking lately, I've been really learning, intermittent fasting, learning insulin resistance, everything I can about insulin resistance. And for the first time in a long time, I'm like, holy shit, this feels good. It's working. So, that's where I challenge everybody. And that's why I get so bent about these keyboard warriors that come in there, because it's like, you're still fat. You're still fat. It's like, I'm trying to figure out what's sustainable, because I've got to do this forever.
Yeah.
I'm done crash dieting and gaining it back, and, et cetera, because I don't know about you, but when I lose 20 pounds, I gain 35 to 40.
Yeah.
So it's unhealthy.
Yeah. No. I think the key with any of this is like, if people find something that's workable, then we should celebrate that that's workable. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think everybody should be intermittent fasting, but if anybody's having success intermittent fasting, keep intermittent fasting. You know what I mean?
All day long. Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, I love food, and like you said it earlier, I get stressed out. Like, again, if I've got to eat 3-4 meals a day, per whatever I'm trying to follow, holy shit, dude. I mean, we're busy people. It's a lot of work to go, oh my God, what are my 4 meals today? And then 4 meals times 7 days in the week, it's overwhelming. So for me, I'm like, I tried intermittent fasting before in the past, and it was absolutely miserable because I went too hard in the paint on keto on it.
Yeah. You were doing intermittent fasting and keto. This is like saying I was both Catholic and Protestant. The troubles in America could just all be solved if we embrace both sides.
It was the most miserable, 5 months of my life.
Dude, listen, I even talked to Kevin Smith, who still does, I believe last time I talked to him, still does intermittent fasting. But after a certain point, that was not keeping the weight off. So he was first vegan, then vegan and intermittent fasting, then vegan and intermittent fasting, and not eating a lot. You know what I mean? Not eating just whatever in his window. So I think that is something to think about too. Like, you have a couple 100 pounds to lose, and over the course of weight loss, your body's energy needs are going to move, and it's not going to be, you know what I mean? Like, that's the one issue I would say with thinking about intermittent fasting is there probably will be tweaks and alterations to what you're doing as you lose weight.
And that's where, again, for me, it's crazy because my doctor's like, hey, let's put you on a Wegovy or one of those new GLPs, injectables. And it's funny, dude, you'll never guess this, right? So I'm like, she's like, let's try to get your insulin sensitivity down, because you're basically a dog chasing its tail right now, right? Yeah. You need to lose weight, but your insulin won't allow you to lose weight because it's too high, right? So then you're, it's just walking in a circle in essence. So I was like, I've had, and I'm sure you did over the years too, I've had people come up to me, strangers. You ever thought about weight loss surgery? And I'm like, I'm in an airport, bro. Who are you? You know what I mean? I know they're coming from a place of for whatever reason, I'm worried about that guy. But, I've always been one where, and my family has asked me and stuff. And I'm like, dude, I have gone to the highest of highs and the lowest of lows over my life in, different situations. I know I can figure this out. Right.
Yeah.
And I don't have any problem with anybody that takes weight loss surgery, as an option. I think it's fantastic. Again, if it's for you, it's for you. Yeah. But for me, I know I have this mental warfare with food that if I don't fix that now, even with weight loss surgery, it's going to be a problem. Like I'm
Yeah.
just going to jeopardize that weight loss surgery, right? So here are these new GLP medicines, I've heard they're called, that have come out, and lo and behold, my insurance won't cover it, right?
Really?
Yeah, and I just sat there and I'm on the phone with my insurance company. I'm like, do you understand? Like, and again, I wasn't that upset by it because I'm like, I still want to figure this out, like for myself. But I'm like, it's just insane to me that this is where we're at with American insurance in essence. If I stay this way for in 5 years, I could be diabetic, I could have a lot of problems, I could have a heart attack. Then your cost goes through the roof. Whereas theoretically, a tool, right, that could potentially help me, you won't cover today to prevent this.
Yeah, I have some concerns about those medicines. Those concerns that I have are not about you taking those medicines. Those
Yeah.
concerns are about Hollywood gals who want to lose 10 pounds for some show, right?
Yeah.
Like they got a award ceremony they got to go to. So I'm going to hop on because to me it seems like in the long term, it could become very easy for a lot of people to crash diets to do crash diets with those medicines, right?
All day.
However, I don't understand for someone like you who has a couple 100 pounds to lose, who's borderline insulin or who is insulin, almost insulin, or who's having insulin sensitivity, right?
Yeah.
That, yeah, the health consequences of that are going to cost your insurance company a lot more money in the long term than just giving you that drug. Like if you become insulin dependent, they're going to pay for that forever. Once you're insulin dependent, you really don't become uninsulin dependent.
No. And I even asked my doctor, months back when she told me, like, oh my God, look what we discovered. I go, am I diabetic? She goes, no. And I go, pre-diabetic? She goes, surprisingly, no. And
Oh,
I'm like, surprisingly? She goes, yeah. She goes, but we caught it early enough to where like it's now or never. You know what I
right.
mean? Go. So, and again, for me, as I've done a lot of research about the way my body needs to kind of consume food is what it's looking like. 5 meals a day, right, spread out through that caloric piece was tough. But now having that gap just allows my body to get really sensitive with insulin. I've also cut back on sugar and I've cut back on carbs. I still consume carbs, but
Yeah.
just a lot less. And it's working. I mean, when I was younger, all I had to do was eat less and weight would come off, right?
Yeah.
If I threw in extra, cutting out carbs, weight would really come off. Since I hit 30, no, it's a whole different world. I mean, I can do, there's people that do keto and they can eat 3,000 calories on keto and they still lose a ton of weight.
Yeah.
And there's people that do
A,
keto.
a lot of that's water though.
It is. Yeah. And it's just funny because as you get older, it just gets harder, so now I'm in my mid-30s.
Well, I think the other complexity, dude, unfortunately, is guys like you or me, that compounds it. But we've also dieted so much. We've done so many crash diets that our body's just kind of like going, fuck you. You think you're gonna get away with this again? Think again. I got you beat, dude. And so, and that is like you mentioned diet culture in America. It's all bananas. It's all crazy. Like some of these diets are insane. And so like I've done insane diets and your body comes out of it like haggard, beaten, bruised, and trying to figure out how to avoid that in the future. So it becomes harder and harder and harder. And every time we diet, it's our body's fighting us.
Couldn't agree more. Here's what's nuts to me, right? Again, when I say I'm a food buff, I love like food history, the whole 9 yards. So if you look back to like the 1950s, like 10% of the American population was overweight.
Yeah.
Now it's 1 in 3 people are overweight / borderline obese. There has got to be a sacrifice, right? Like I'm not saying like you got to cut out carbs, but like our food now is so processed. And my favorite thing is we've gone from like this spike in the first round of what I'll call, food issues from like the 60s to the 80s, where it's like the processed foods, your frozen foods, your easy, quick foods have kind of come along. To now, dude, we're on like processed foods on steroids.
Yeah.
And you're talking, I won't name the company so we don't all get sued in the room, but there's a very popular salad dressing company. Flip the label over. I mean, it's a science experiment, right? And then when you go into like the low fat and the light versions of it,
Oh, it gets even crazier.
oh, dude, it's nuts. And then we wonder why we have these health issues. Well, it's beyond just gaining weight. Now we're seeing all kinds of different health issues, but it's scary, dude. And you want to hear the craziest story, Ethan? Check this shit out. I invented and created, in essence, the world's first true plant-based salad dressing. Okay, for a company I've since sold. It was made out of chickpeas, out of beans, right? And the majority of it was vegetable based, so less sugar, less oils, less fats. I didn't mean to create like a low calorie product, but I accidentally created this delicious, clean, full calorie or low calorie product. When I would go to a retailer to sell it in, they would be like, "Why are you $8.99 for a bottle of salad dressing?"
Right.
And I'm like, "Because it's full of real vegetables, not powders, not." And they're like, "Well, that's not going to sell. We
Yeah.
need it for half the price." And they're comparing me to the other guys, and I'm like, "There's no real food in that product whatsoever. Like maybe
Yeah.
a scotch, right?
No, they made it in a laboratory.
An actual laboratory. That is correct, with actual scientists.
And
You
white coats and guys with beakers and glass tubes. Yeah.
dead serious? That is exactly what they look like. I mean, when you hear that, you're like, oh, I'm like, oh no, I've seen the labs. They're legit lab, grown stuff. Whereas if you go, and again, I grew up in Ohio, farmlands, you know what I mean? I grew up around farming and there was no organic beef growing up. Like we went and we'd buy a half a cow or a whole cow at the fair and we'd slaughter it and we'd eat that all winter long. To me, like our food is so broken. And then now we've gone from, again, this like science experiment stuff to now they're giving you health foods, right? Oh, this 0-calorie caramel sauce. That's impossible.
Right.
It's, you know what I mean? Like you should not be eating 0-calorie caramel sauce. And then it's just really effing with our minds because it's like, I'm not going to name the diet, but there's one that's really popular where it's 0 points for a bunch of proteins and fruits and vegetables. And I'm like, at some point in time, if you eat 10 pounds of grapes, it's a couple thousand calories. You know what I mean? We're just not being realistic. And that's kind of where I'm learned to really push the noise away and go, let's eat whole. Let's try to put protein first and try to eat really whole ingredients. And I mean, I love Cheez-Its and stuff. Like they're fucking delicious, right?
Yeah.
But I'm going to make that a very small portion of my diet. Whereas before, it's always been a big portion, just like the rest of America, fast, delicious, cheap, etc. Right? I mean, it's hard, man. It's hard to get the food.
It's hard. I had a mom my mom was basically like, I perceived her to be a hippie. We were always in health food stores, and like these were health food stores before they became cool. Like the Kardashians had not marketed these health food stores when I was a little kid. And you'd walk in and you got a sense like half the shit in there was covered with dust because nobody touched it.
Yes.
And like a lot of the times they didn't turn the lights on, so it was real dim. Like there would be like Sikhs, like turban Sikhs who ate very specifically, macrobiotic people who very much looked like they were dying of cancer.
Yep.
And then my mom, who was trying to fix her overweight son with whole foods. And I'll tell you, I can overeat whole foods just like I can overeat anything. Like you give me Ezekiel bread and and
hummus,
whatever, I'll overeat it. So like that's my one thing where I'm like, look, I agree with everything you said. I think right now my diet is made up almost entirely of stuff with one word ingredients. Broccoli. That's it. That's all that's in it. It's broccoli. Now, if I want to add some salt and some spices to the broccoli, each one of those things just has one ingredient. You know what I mean? Olive oil. It's made with olives. Done. That's the ingredient. Fish. It's just salmon. My treats vary occasionally because I'll get pulled into this idea where Halo Top every night is okay. And it's not okay for me. I can't eat Halo Top every night.
Because like, food marketing tells you eat it every night, brother.
Eat it every night. But if I have it once a month, that's like a nice treat. I really enjoy it. And I don't feel guilty about it. A pint of it's got 250 to 400 calories instead of 1,600 to 2,000. And I don't wake up feeling like crap. But I can also go crazy and eat that every night and then start to feel crappy. Um, so I agree. I do think our food system is a little bit broken, and we have this like weird connection to pharmacology where it's like eat whatever you want, eat all this like delicious, highly palatable garbage food that has all kinds of chemicals in it to turn off the hormones in your body that would tell you you're full, right? Like
Yeah.
I'll throw MSG on food just to make a point that MSG isn't poisonous, but what it does is it makes you capable of overeating because it's so delicious. It
Yeah.
beats any signals in your body telling you you're full, right? Because it becomes that delicious. Doritos are full of MSG. You can sit
Oh,
and eat a bag of Doritos and never turn them off. Yeah, because they're
yeah.
incredible.
They're so
Um,
good.
so like, yeah, if that's your diet, like one of the first fixes I would recommend is stop eating anything in the middle of the supermarket. Just shop around the periphery, produce, meats, stuff like that. Get whole grains, and I'd imagine most of America would see a big change. But if you're like me and you can do that for a while and then you're going to start overeating it, right? Like potatoes and olive oil is so
Oh,
delicious that I'll eat too much of that,
bro, you give me a baked potato, like a well done baked potato, with some salt and the butter. I mean, Jesus, man, game over.
Oh
I
yeah.
get, buttered corn on the cob. It's
Oh my
corn.
God. Yeah.
It's grass fed butter. Dude,
Right.
I'm putting
I'll
down
overeat it.
hell
Yeah.
yeah, I'm putting down a dozen ears, no problem.
Yeah, no problem. Especially if you get some of those like Mexican spices that they put on the corn,
Oh,
like tahini or something. It's incredible. Yeah.
it's it. I mean, and again, let's talk about fruit. You get the right piece of fruit, like down here in Florida, we have strawberry season.
Yeah.
They're this big, and they taste like the best candy you've ever had. I'll put down a whole flat without even trying.
Yeah.
Yeah, berries are good for you, but like, 3 pounds of them, maybe not,
Right.
Um, I'm really, and I don't know about you, but right now my big focus has been because again, it's funny. I come out of food, right? I understand the game, and it pisses me off, truthfully. My thing is like, okay, enough. Don't try to sell me a 0 calorie chocolate chip cookie with these bullshit benefits. No, 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 no. I want to eat clean. I want to try to eat good. I want to eat whole foods. And if then I'm gonna eat something good like that,
Have the real thing.
and fucking full send it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's real nice quality ingredients, and you appreciate it more. Like I've cut back on sweets drastically, and one of my big saviors has actually been Greek yogurt. I've
Yeah.
learned
Oh
to
yeah. Me
oh
too. Yeah.
love Greek yogurt, dude. So good for you. That's my treat, and like lately I've been using more of like a keto type granola. It's like nuts and seeds and stuff. So like I'll get one that's like a cheesecake kind of esque. It's not perfect, but it's a lot better than eating an actual cheesecake for me. And like when I'm craving that sweet, I hit that thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there's so many, and Halo Top is a great example. I love the company. I think what they do is cool, but to me, having a dessert every single night's part of my problem.
Me too.
It's
No,
like get that fixed.
100%. Yeah. I have to make these special occasions, and it doesn't matter what it is. You see, there's like and they're in every gas station, in every 7-Eleven, every convenience store. I think they're marketed as protein cookies, and like it's got 12 grams of protein. That's not really a serving of protein for me. Maybe it is
Yeah.
for somebody who's 120 pounds, but like for me, 12 grams I got to eat 4 of these cookies to get like a protein fix. But I see protein cookie and I'm like, great, I can have that every day, all the
Yeah,
time.
yeah,
This
yeah.
cookie is at the end of every meal. And the cookie's got 400 calories in it. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
it's not, there's no, and it's full of other garbage.
There's dude, I can go on for an hour just naming off brands that like do this kind of bait and switch type shit just to get the marketing plug. Like there's a company that like a salad dressing again made with olive oil. The olive oil, it leads with canola, right?
Right.
Just a shitty oil. The last ingredient's olive oil, right?
Yeah.
Because they got to keep the cost down,
Right.
or they'll lead with protein. You know what I mean? What did I? Oh, I saw someone the other day sent me. There were baked potatoes that were wrapped, right? And it said plant-based nutrients. And I was like, It's a fucking baked potato. Of course it's plant-based. Like, we have gone too far with the marketing, man. It's literally a potato in a microwave plastic sleeve. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
of course it's plant-based, you know?
Yeah. By
It's
the
a
way, those microwavable potatoes are not bad. I've done that a few times. They're pretty damn good.
oh, they're fast, man. You pop in the
Yeah.
microwave, and especially the sweet potatoes, because if you bake them, you're there for a day and a half.
It's ours. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's
Dude, Jesse, I could talk like this all day. This has been awesome. I hope we do this again and we can check in with you. And I love watching you. I love your journey. And I love that you're walking all the time. I personally think walking is like the greatest thing anyone can do to get health benefits. Walking. Just go for a walk. First of all, it's free. You just
yeah,
walk, you leave your front door and you're walking.
no
And
membership or anything.
yeah, and you can get a lot out of it. So I love it. You're on your walks, you're eating what you need to be eating. It's amazing.
Thanks, brother. Yeah, 2 to 3 miles every day, 6 days a week is the goal right now. And I'm really hoping to kind of do like a half marathon, kind of situation here coming up is kind of a personal goal this year. I want to lose some more weight, to make it a little easier on my joints and stuff. But I appreciate it, dude. I mean, what it's like, and that's one thing I really respect you for. It's easier to listen and take advice and, with people that have struggled and been through it. And you're a huge role model for me and for so many people in so many ways.
Amazing. Well, please keep doing what you're doing because it helps me. Every time I see it, I get a little fired up. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you.
All right, talk soon.